She believed she was being told by God to basically exorcise demons out of the child's body. And when the child had stopped moving and basically passed away, at that point she felt the child had been released of those demons.
It was a warm, still morning in Fort Pierce, Florida. A sheriff's deputy walked up the short path to a small white house on Bedford Drive. He wasn't there for an arrest or a raid. He was just following up on a school's request for a welfare check on a child who hadn't shown up to class for more than 2 weeks. The woman she saw was Rhonda Paulinice, and the deputy spoke to her the way anyone would when checking on a child. "Is there any way I could at least see him, just to make sure he's okay?" She turned and walked back inside. The deputy followed her through a narrow hallway that smelled faintly of cleaning spray and something else he couldn't place. In the small bedroom at the end of the hall, the deputy saw a neatly made bed, a blanket pulled up tight, and Spider-Man balloons swaying gently beside it. Beneath that blanket lay 6-year-old Ramil Pierre. He had been gone for nearly 2 weeks, and no one, not his teachers, not his classmates, not even his neighbors, had known where he was. Inside, the investigation of one of the most heartbreaking cases in Florida's recent memory had just begun. Because what police would soon learn about what happened inside that room and why Rhonda Paulinice believed it was an act of faith would leave even seasoned detectives stunned. But before we begin, if you find this video interesting, please give it a like at the end and tell me what you think about the case. It really helps the channel. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you. This video is created solely for educational and documentary purposes. It does not endorse, glorify, or condone any of the criminal actions or individuals described in this case. Viewer discretion is advised. Ramil Pierre had been the kind of child teachers talked about with warmth long after class ended. He was 6 years old and attended Samuel S. Gaines Academy, a K-8 school in Fort Pierce, Florida. He loved Spider-Man. The red and blue hero was everywhere in his life, on his school bag, on his bed sheets, and even on the balloons that floated above his bed on his last birthday. Teachers remembered how he'd wave shyly before taking his seat, and how his laughter always seemed to lift the mood of everyone around him. On May 13th, 2025, Ramil came to school just like he always did. He was cheerful, focused, and full of energy. That afternoon, he told his teacher goodbye and ran toward the gate, clutching his favorite Spider-Man lunchbox. No one could have known that it would be the last time they would see him alive. The following day, May 14th, his desk sat empty. Teachers assumed he was unwell, maybe home with a fever or a stomach ache, and expected to see him return in a few days. But as the week passed, his seat remained vacant. The attendance officer sent a message home, and when no one replied, they tried calling the number listed on his school file. Each time, the line rang out without an answer. But a week became 10 days, and then 2 full weeks. His classmates began asking questions, whispering about where he might be. However, by the 16th day, the absence had gone far beyond what anyone could overlook. There was no word from the family, no sign of Ramil anywhere, and every attempt to reach his mother had failed. So, following school protocol, the officer filed a welfare request with the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office. It was the morning of May 30th, 2025, around 10:30 a.m. 2 St. Lucie County deputies pulled up to a small house that belonged to Rhonda Paulinice, following up on a simple welfare check requested by the school.
Hey, you Rhonda? You Rhonda?
Yeah.
Hey, Rhonda, I'm actually here to talk to you. So, you have a 17-year-old son? Kid?
17-year-old son?
Or, I'm sorry, a child.
Yes.
Yes. They haven't been to school in this whole month?
Oh, yeah. No. It's just that I haven't sent him to school yet.
Okay. So, from what I'm being told, they haven't been in school this whole month.
341, that's all 97?
Mm-hmm.
The school is unaware of what's going on with him.
Oh, he's going to go back to school.
Okay, but at this point, it's already reached a point of truancy. It's reaching the point of truancy.
What's that?
Legal thing that, I mean, you could get in trouble for.
Oh, okay.
Like you pretty much have to, if you don't get in contact with the school right now to inform them of what's going on,
Okay.
they're gonna send you to court.
Okay, I'll give him a call. I didn't even realize that. Okay, I'll call his teacher.
You got your ID on you?
No.
Do Is it inside the house?
I have a picture of it.
Yeah, can I see it?
341 or so?
341?
Yeah, you can count 31. I'm 10-12, but I'm consider everything 10-4.
10-4, 10-12, 10-4.
And is your kid here right now?
Charlie, LA, Martin
Is your kid here right now?
10-4, Charlie.
Is my son here?
Yeah, is he here?
Yes.
Is there any way I could at least see him just to make sure that he's okay?
Sure.
Three, 5-4.
And Michael Lima.
10-4, Mike Lima.
Were you able to pull up the ID? Were you able to pull up the ID?
Yeah, hold on.
$97.
97. That's a 391. Check 10-4.
10-1.
26.
She's just trying to pull up a picture of her ID and then gonna go inside, so we can at least.
He's in the.
That's what she said.
When the door opened, time seemed to stop. The room was tidy, almost too neat, with a few toys lined up against the wall and a cluster of Spider-Man balloons floating near the window. The bed looked freshly made, a blanket pulled carefully over what seemed to be a sleeping child. But the deputy called out softly, but there was no movement, no sound. As he stepped closer, the truth came into view. 6-year-old Ramil Pierre lay motionless under the fabric. There were no visible injuries, no signs of a struggle, but the unmistakable signs of time had already begun to show. The deputy froze for a moment, then reached for his radio with a controlled voice that betrayed a quiet shock. He called for backup, for detectives, for the medical examiner, anyone who could take over what was no longer a welfare check but the beginning of a criminal investigation. And so, what began as a simple attendance check, just a routine follow-up from a concerned school, had, in a single moment, turned into a homicide investigation.
The boy, Ramil Pierre, attended Samuel Gaines Academy, an elementary school 5 miles away from home. Visibly shaken neighbors and relatives say it should have never come to this.
I'm devastated. I'm sick to my stomach.
I just can't believe this semen is real. Like, I'm waiting to hear what really happened.
As detectives began questioning Rhonda at the scene, her emotions shifted unpredictably. One moment she was calm, answering questions in a flat, detached tone. The next, she would burst into laughter or tears. She didn't seem to grasp the severity of what was happening. When asked about her son, she spoke as though he wasn't gone at all, referring to him in the present tense and saying that God had freed him. Sheriff Richard Del Toro later explained what his team learned from those first conversations. She believed God was telling her to exorcise demons from her son's body, he said at a press briefing. When the child stopped moving, she thought the demons were gone, and she was waiting for him to come back.
A year, there had been domestic issues involving a family member who had previously lived there. Then, on May 17, 2025, just one day before Ramil would die, deputies returned for what they described as a medical issue involving Paulinus herself.
What we did learn in speaking with the mother is she believed she was being told by God to basically exorcise demons out of the child's body. And when the child had stopped moving and basically passed away, at that point she felt the child had been released of those demons and was waiting for him to basically come back at that time. During the course of the interviews, our detectives learned that the mother last spoke to the child on May 18th. That's when we believed the homicide occurred, and that she was responsible for the child's death. She's being charged tonight with second-degree murder and also failure to report a death, and for also altering the body after the deceased.
And detectives began piecing together who Rhonda was. Records showed that deputies had visited the same address twice earlier that year. The first visit, in January, involved a domestic dispute with a sister who had been staying at the home for a while. It had ended quietly, without arrests or charges. The second call, made on May 17th, just one day before investigators now believed Ramil died, was listed as a medical issue involving Rhonda herself. According to reports, she seemed disoriented, claiming she had been feeling unwell but refusing to go to the hospital. The deputies who responded that night had no reason to suspect a danger to the child, and they left after confirming that both mother and son appeared safe. Neighbors later told detectives that Rhonda had become increasingly distant in the months leading up to the tragedy. She stopped attending church regularly and sometimes walked the street alone, muttering to herself as if in conversation with someone no one else could see. But she was never aggressive, never loud, never violent. To most people around her, she simply looked like a tired, single mother carrying too much on her own. During interrogation, she explained that in the days before May 18th, she started seeing signs in Ramil, things she interpreted as proof that an enemy spirit had taken hold of him. She told investigators he had begun acting differently, sometimes restless, sometimes withdrawn, and that he would hum to himself or stare into space. To her, those were not the actions of a child being playful or tired. They were, in her mind, evidence of something dark moving inside him. Detectives exchanged glances as she spoke. Later, one would write in his report that what she described sounded like normal behavior of a growing child. But Rhonda was certain of what she believed. She said the voice she called the Father had told her that she must act, that she had been chosen to free her son from the spirit tormenting him. And so, on the morning of Saturday, May 18th, she woke early, prayed beside her bed, and prepared to do what she thought was divine work. She told them she went into Ramil's room just after sunrise. He was lying under his blanket, still half asleep. She said she placed one hand on his chest and the other over his mouth to drive the spirit out. She whispered prayers as she pressed down, repeating verses she believed were given to her by God. According to her confession, Ramil struggled at first, moving, trying to resist, but she did not stop. She said she felt a force guiding her, telling her to keep going until the evil left him. Then, after several moments, he went still. She said quietly, "When he stopped, I knew the demons were gone." For a while, she sat beside him, waiting for him to wake up. When he didn't, she believed that he was simply resting, that his body needed time to recover from what she had just done. She covered him with fabric, placed his favorite Spider-Man blanket around his head, and began to pray. She told detectives she felt a deep peace come over her, as though she had done exactly what God wanted. Over the next 12 days, she lived with the body in the same house. Every morning, she went into his room, sat by the bed, and whispered prayers. She said she would blow warm air on his face to help him breathe again, and that sometimes she thought she saw him move. She truly believed a resurrection was coming, and the next morning the autopsy would prove what she had already confessed. Her story, tragic as it was, matched the evidence exactly. The early report listed the cause of death as suffocation, with toxicology results still pending. Investigators waited for those results to rule out the possibility of drugs or poisoning, but nothing in the initial findings contradicted Rhonda's story. With the timeline verified and the autopsy completed, prosecutors moved quickly. Rhonda Joyce Paulinice was formally charged with second-degree murder, failure to report a death, and tampering with a body. She was denied bond at her first court appearance and remained in custody as investigators continued gathering evidence. The St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office later confirmed in a statement that Rhonda would remain in custody at the county jail pending trial. Her next court date had not yet been scheduled, and the defense had requested a full psychological evaluation before any plea could be entered. From a legal perspective, the charge of second-degree murder carried significant weight. It implied intent to kill, but without premeditation, meaning the act had been deliberate, but not planned. The court's focus, however, began to shift toward her mental state. If the evaluation found her mentally unfit, proceedings could be delayed indefinitely or redirected towards psychiatric care. But if she were deemed competent, she would face a full criminal trial for the killing of her son. The video hearing ended after less than 15 minutes, yet those watching, reporters, officials, and members of the public, were left with more questions than answers. And as the legal process took its first steps, a quiet unease spread through Fort Pierce, a community trying to comprehend how something so horrifying could have unfolded in one of its quietest neighborhoods. At Samuel S. Gaines Academy, where 6-year-old Ramil Pierre had been a student, grief spread quickly through the classrooms. Teachers described him as a bright, cheerful child who was well loved by his peers. The St. Lucie County School District released an official statement expressing deep sorrow over his death and announced that grief counseling and support services would be made available to students and staff affected by the tragedy. Across Fort Pierce, community leaders also spoke out. Will Armstead, CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of St. Lucie County, called the case a painful reminder of the importance of mental health awareness for both parents and children. This tragedy reminds us how vital mental health is, for parents and children alike, he said. Sometimes the signs aren't obvious until it's too late. Outside the small house on Bedford Drive, a memorial began to take shape within hours of the news breaking. Neighbors and community members left balloons, candles, flowers, and teddy bears along the sidewalk where deputies had stood just days earlier. Families brought their children to pay quiet respects, and strangers stopped to bow their heads or whisper prayers. The sight was simple but powerful, a neighborhood mourning a child it never expected to lose, and a community left to wonder how something so unthinkable could have gone unnoticed. Could this have been prevented? Now we'd like to hear from you. What do you think could have been done differently to save Ramil's life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one of them, and your voice truly matters. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real, in-depth, true crime stories. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself.